Well, hello, and welcome to this lesson in grain marketing on ILSoy Advisor, one of several modules in a marketing education series brought to you by Illinois Soybean Association. My name is Jason Moss, and I live and farm just outside of Quincy, Illinois, in Adams County. I'm also a senior marketing consultant for Brock Associates, where I've worked with farmers and agribusinesses for over 15 years in commodity marketing. Our firm is a market advisory company that was founded by Richard Brock in 1980, and we're largely known in the farm community for our marketing seminars and our most prominent publication, the Brock Report. Today, I'll be the instructor for a lesson titled Marketing Plan Risk Management, where I'll be discussing exactly how you can use your marketing plan to manage price risk. The thought behind Brock Associates working with Illinois Soybean Association to develop and deliver marketing education to farmers stems from the fact that most farmers have a desire to improve their marketing, combined with our belief that market education is the best way to ultimately improve your marketing results. Now, it's very common for all of us as farmers to say that our number one goal is to do a better job, but better marketing results is really a vision. Making better marketing decisions would be a goal, and making more confident marketing decisions that would be underscored by the widest understanding of marketing concepts would be an objective to meet such a goal. But these video lessons are going to be posted on Illinois Soy Advisor and then get promoted across the internet, which means they're going to get viewed by a wide cross-section of knowledge levels, experience levels, different sales levels, different reasons for listening, some pretty strong opinions, and probably a ton of different marketing priorities right now. With that, I just want to say that whether you make marketing decisions and your motivation is self-improvement, whether you're just interested in the markets and your goal is knowledge, whether you're an undersold PhD landowner in his 70s from Chicago, or the undersold, oversold 55-year-old veteran farmer who knows more about marketing than I do, or if you're anywhere in between, this series is still going to help challenge your current marketing decision-making process. Most of the companies out there that provide market education usually are self-study or exam prep companies and materials. They're in the business of solely conveying and teaching the information. But the marketing plan is one of the least included topics in market education. And since one of our goals is to try and empower better decision-making process, which will ultimately lead to better marketing results, we're going to start with it. We're going to hold it as a central theme that a lot of other aspects of market education revolve around. And since this lesson is titled Managing Price Risk with a Marketing Plan, it's important to begin that lesson with defining just exactly what that is. So it's a pricing strategy, which is really trying to make marketing as systematic as possible, trying to account for as many decisions ahead of time as possible. It's a specific plan of action that communicates what your pricing goals are and how you're going to make decisions to meet them. Now, each of those words was chosen, pretty specifically, just like it says itself. But a specific plan of action communicates what your pricing goals are and how. The how is really important. How you're going to make decisions to meet those goals. If you think of your farming operation as having an overall macro business plan, and beneath it would be, sub plans for different categories of management decisions. You'd have a financial plan where your cash flow and budget type of projections would be located. Your operating plan would include some directives for how you conduct field operations per se. And then there would be a risk management plan, whether you prepare that specifically or not. But within that risk management plan, if you think of it that way, it is really where the marketing plan belongs, not under the financial plan side of the coin. I know marketing sometimes feels like a banking function, as it's receiving money and making deposits and preparing some projections for your banker, but it really belongs within the other items or management decisions you make to manage production and price uncertainty, such as the amount and size and cost of machinery that you use, how you rotate crops, what crops you do plant, how and why you buy crop insurance. But it's important to get marketing and think of it in the context of it belonging within a risk management plan to begin, because the marketing plan is going to talk about the decisions you make and kind of give you the authorization for how you make decisions. So I want to think of it in this term. There are two types of price risk that we have to manage and hopefully account for within the marketing plan. And they're kind of named here intuitively to underscore the severity or the magnitude of them differently. But those two risks are sinking the ship price risk or missing the boat price risk. Now, for a seller, the first risk, the sinking the ship, is that downside price risk, that we have to avoid. That is, the prices fall and you don't sell it. That missing the boat price risk, which is a little more abstract on seeing that it is an actual price risk, is that lost opportunity of higher prices after you make a sale. Now, I've heard a lot of farmers say that they don't really have that missing the boat price risk, that if I make a sale at a profit, I don't care if the price goes up. Well, that's not entirely true. If you sold a significant part of your crop and then the price rallied, let's say 10-20%, you would agree you couldn't do that too many times and stay competitive in your business, in any business. So that risk does exist. The way we usually account for that is in our percent sold, i.e., if I am 20% sold at a given point in time instead of 70% sold on a crop at a given same point in time, that being less percent sold is accounting for that missing the boat price risk. But whether you buy or sell anything, you always have these two price risks, the up and down and the before and after. The logic behind needing the marketing plan is pretty straightforward, and most would agree. You need it ahead of time, before the marketing decisions need to be made. Just like you're preparing a budget before you start spending any money, you prepare a balance sheet before you buy insurance to know how much to cover. You develop it ahead of time, like an operating plan, before you take the planner to the field. None of us just show up at the field and then make decisions at that point in time. But unfortunately, in marketing, that is the way we handle a lot of decisions. And that marketing plan, most tendencies are to get too basic rather than too complex with the decisions if someone tries to spell them out in a marketing plan. But it's got to be more flexible than just a desired profit level that you want. It's got to have more direction in it than just a price that you want. It's got to have more details than just a percent sold at a point in time. And it's got to be more specific than just time deadlines to meet objectives. A couple years ago, one of the largest farm credit associations in the country conducted a pretty widespread multi-state survey to farmers about their marketing habits, practices, and tools. And one large takeaway was that overall, those producers that are the most satisfied with their marketing results are also those who understand how to use a more diverse set of marketing tools, which kind of underscores that market education can ultimately lead to more satisfaction, better results. But some other statistics that were noteworthy and kind of say something about how farmers make marketing decisions in general were that 17% of farmers have a written marketing plan. That's 17 total have one. 59% have no plan at all. 73% know their cost of production. A little bit less than that, 62% use that cost of production to make marketing decisions. Only 29% separate the futures and basis decisions in marketing, and 49% subscribe to some advisory service for information. That could be a newsletter that doesn't necessarily need to be paid, but 49%, right at half, are seeking information, let's say, outside of their local elevator or coffee shop. Developing your marketing plan specific to you is really a large undertaking in customization, where you've got to start by putting all your preferences and your parameters on the table. And this is really identifying where you are now so we can set parameters on where you need to be. This is developing the plan is really reconciling how you do make decisions versus how you should make sales with the highest probability of being successful. And you really have to bring all those preferences and parameters, biases, the way you do it, the way you want to do it, put it on the table, and then we start to sort it out. And identifying where you're at to begin with, what are your existing decision-making processes? Do you only sell in certain increments? Do you only sell at certain times? Does the way you make decisions, does that come from you, or are there other people involved in that process? Is it a multi-family member business? How those decisions are being made? What is that process? You got to uncover your beliefs and assumptions. Everybody's got them. They could be little things that come out in some of the things you say subtly. Storage doesn't pay, or always sell ahead, or only deliver to this elevator, or you have to market with crop insurance, or I would never haul my grain this far. We've all got those beliefs and assumptions that shape a lot of our marketing decisions. You've also got to consider your cost of production. We don't like to, in our company, build marketing decisions entirely around cost of production, because we think it leads a person to be selling too much in a rising market, or not really have a plan B and have you undersold in a market that's falling. But you've got to consider those to balance profitability with your price outlook. You've got to identify your risk tolerance level. Not for, if you ask any farmer what their risk tolerance level is, most would say aggressive. But as farmers, everybody's addicted to the struggle. Risk is part of the game. But this risk tolerance level for marketing is really what, take your financial statement. Is what your financial statement says consistent with the types of risks and gambles that you're making in marketing. You got to appropriate for cash flow needs. There's times of year where you need money from sales. If I've got a client who calls me up and says, I've got 30,000 bushels of overage, what do you think I should do? Well, the first thing I want to know is, what's his drop dead date? When's the latest point in time he's going to let it go before just selling it anyway? And everyone has those times where you're going to have to sell it anyway. Those need put on the table to frame around. And lastly, you've got to establish goals. As basic as that sounds, like having a weight loss goal or having a profitability goal, everybody needs goals. It's a pretty common buzzword, but you've got to have them in marketing. They can be market-centric goals, like your average price being in the top third. They could be price-centric, like a certain price per bushel or price per acre that you want. Or they could be profitability-based goals, like dollars per acre of return. But you have to have goals to benchmark against and to gauge and get better. So why nitpick your beliefs and the way you make marketing decisions so much? The reason is the psychological component involved in making marketing decisions has such a dominant presence. A person's disposition is really their degree of rational influence on their decisions, and nobody does it. The psychological effects on marketing decisions is very comparable to what's going on in a land auction. If any of you have ever been to a land auction, one that you've been interested in or one that you've bid on, think of the emotions and what's going on in your mind in that kind of environment. In marketing is very similar. But a marketing disposition that is objective is one that's systematic and planned, that is making many incremental decisions instead of very few. It is diversifying the number of marketing techniques and tools that you use. That's responding to specific predetermined goals, ones that you've thought about and planned for ahead of time. But that subjective disposition, and more have it than don't, is when you market or make sales when the forecasted price move is pretty substantial, like want to sell soybeans today because I think the price is going to drop by $1. That's also watching the market closely from the sideline and just deciding to decide later, or that's reacting to market influences in real time with no thought of it ahead of time. And if you really want to measure your marketing objectivity, just give your spouse, your significant other, a chart, a price chart that has the prices wiped off of the label. Just give them a price chart of soybeans and take everything off of the axis and ask them if they would sell or if they would wait. And you'll start to see potential dichotomy in what is causing you or driving a lot of your decisions. Most of us can undertake the exercise of putting a marketing plan together when the incentive is there to take the time. So developing it is kind of the easy part. It's implementing it is where usually the best plans and intentions seem to unravel. But over time, I've really learned that there's probably two primary things that you can do to improve the odds of your marketing plan being successful. The first is that it's written down, which I know is pretty straightforward, seems pretty simple, but it's huge and not many people do it. If the way you're making marketing decisions now is incapable, in your opinion, of being described on paper, then frankly it's time to rethink why you're the one making marketing decisions anyway. I say that lightly because one objection a lot of times is a farmer that says, I don't know if I can write it down, my marketing plan. And the truth is, you know that you can. Of course you can write it down using your words. You need it. You need that implementation to be easier in real time. You need a quick reference to think rationally when the market's moving fast. You need some discipline to help avoid emotion. That discipline that it adds is knowing your next sale. You can't decide to decide later. If you don't want to sell at today's price, you've got to be able to decide today at what price you do want to sell. I.e., I don't want to sell it at $4.50 corn today. Okay, that's fine. If you're a client of mine, we're talking on the phone, that's fine. But we're not going to get off the phone until you do tell me at what price you do want to sell. Even if that's $5 when the market's at $4.50, that's fine. That's progress. You have defined the next sale, which is really important. And frankly, if you can't decide at what price you want to make the next sale today, that decision's not going to get any easier whether the market moves up 30 cents or it moves down 30 cents. Is if the market moves up 30 cents, you'll be too tempted to kind of wait and hold out for a higher price, to where trying to decide in real time later is not going to be any easier. And if the market falls 30 cents from where it's at now, you'll be sick to yourself that you could have just had a price 30 cents higher, and the emotion of fear will start to grip you, and you'll freeze with some indecision a lot of times. So that price move wouldn't make the decision any easier. It's also a good external communication tool if you've got it written down. It could demonstrate some competence to landlords if you have some shares, or they want to know a methodology, or lenders, any stakeholder in the business. And it's also an internal communication tool. Talk about mitigating the decision-making environment. If you farm in a family business that's got any two of the following: a brother, a dad, an uncle, a son, a nephew, a wife, a wife, a wife, a wife, a wife, a wife, having a written marketing plan mitigates that decision-making environment. It starts getting the focus on, what do we change about the plan, instead of, why didn't you do this differently? And frankly, it's not really talked about much in estate planning type of circles, but there's too many in the next generation that are really lost when it comes to marketing, because most of the time the marketing plan is upstairs in the elder generation's head. So if you think of the continuity of your farm in the next generation, for your son and daughter's sake, think about getting that marketing plan written down, just to articulate to them how you're making marketing decisions. The second most important thing that a person could do to give their marketing plan the greatest odds of being successful is reviewing it regularly. That's not the analyzing how it went and analyzing the results. We'll get to that. But this is how often you are making this measure, or looking at where are we on sales relative to the plan. You can't just listen to the markets daily. That passive way of making marketing decisions is not strong enough for markets as volatile as they are today. You need to update the marketing plan or revise the strategy as conditions unfold. A lot of times that's, there's news events, or there's weather events, or price changes pretty substantially, or you make to yourself or the region some yield forecast changes. So it's not just a static plan that is meant to prepare for the banker, on February 1st, and then check it again and look at it the following February 1st. There's a lot of intraseasonal opportunities that evolve. A lot of times that manifest themselves in the way of basis or cash marketing or delivery opportunities that you, in the context of your marketing plan, by reviewing it regularly, take advantage of. And it's really important that you try and understand what your current net price means to the business. And by net price, I'm talking that marked to market price that is net of everything. That's what you have sold at that price plus what is unsold at the price you could get today, and what that net overall average is. In this example, let's say it was corn. If you were 40% sold at $4.50 and the current cash price was $3.30, that'd be a net selling price of $3.78. And knowing that $3.78 and knowing the impact of what $3.78 would do for your business is why you review it regularly, because knowing where that net selling price is more often can just change the risk profile at which you approach decisions throughout the year. If you don't have a marketing plan or a written marketing plan, this is the best example I can give of the best place to start. And it's an allocation matrix. The idea is that you're allocating what percent of the crop. You're taking a look at how the decisions should be made before you start looking at what decisions to make. And it's a 2x2 allocation matrix where you put a percent of the crop in those quadrants based on how that marketing decisions need to be made. So it's by proximity of the decision. Is it what's self-directed and externally managed versus the methodology. Mechanical would be automated, and active would be more discretionary type of decisions. So a self-directed and mechanical marketing would be pricing at some predetermined times or price levels. It's automated; those orders are in ahead of time. Self-directed and active, where 99% of the farm community resides, would be utilizing your own resources, from what you subscribe to what you hear in the coffee shop, to just synthesizing everything that you're doing and looking at to make your own decisions. What would be externally managed and mechanical would be I think the various types of elevator programs that you could diversify and put a portion of your bushels in. And what would be externally managed and active decision making would be putting bushels with a market advisor or in a pool. And bankers really like this, because if they identify a farmer that marketing is kind of a big single point of failure risk for that operation, if you sit down with a blank one of these matrices and talk about how your marketing is going, these percents kind of fall into place where they need to be. So for someone who's disciplined and market savvy, they very well might allocate a higher portion of their crop to what is self-directed versus someone who gets preoccupied or is pretty conservative, finds themselves undersold a lot of the time. They might weight more heavily in the externally managed side of marketing decisions. But in marketing plans, if you're starting from scratch, or you even want to take a look at your own to look through it and possibly make it better, allocate the crop by how the decisions should be made first. What you see here is titled the 2019 Soybean Marketing Matrix. And what this is the most comprehensive written marketing plan that has all the components that you really need that I could show a person. And it's comprehensive because it's got price across the top, it's got time across the left, and it's got quantity in the middle. So for 2019 soybeans, you've got along the left the calendar year before, the 4 quarters of the year, the calendar year after. And you've got a landscape of prices across the top that advance sales, that if price moves higher, you move sales higher. But if prices don't move higher and time moves on, you still have to advance sales. It's got that plan B component of it, that if prices don't get to the level you desire, that you still have to make some sales. Now, I say this is a solid example of written marketing plan for that reason, but what that also does in a written marketing plan like this, especially if you're in an environment with multiple decision makers, is it starts centering the discussion on, I think the 50% here should be 60%, Fred. It takes the hindsight wisdom out of marketing and really focuses on the marketing discussions away from blame or why didn't we do this or I thought you did that. It starts focusing on some specifics. So I've heard every pushback on this over the last 15 years you can imagine. Some people say, well, those prices, are they cash or are they futures? Doesn't matter. Make it whichever one you want. Or the time frames along the left. Well, I don't have on-farm storage for that much, so I can't use that last time frame. Okay, that's fine. Think of this as a concept for how to make marketing decisions. That you've got time, you've got prices, and you've got moving sales forward. And the nice thing is, after harvest, when you know how many bushels you've produced, you don't have to have these percents. You can actually put quantities in. 5,000 bushels, at this price by the end of this month, or 5,000 more bushels if it doesn't, if time moves on, even if that price isn't achieved. But this is just a hard copy deliverable that can really help force a discussion. This isn't what I would say should be the entire written marketing plan, although this does include all the components that you really do need. So what I think should accompany a matrix like we just saw for a written marketing plan are some components that steer your marketing decisions towards the way you need to make them. I said a little bit earlier that developing the marketing plans where you flesh out everything about what you believe and your biases and how you make decisions so that we can work at creating some parameters, which is what these are, to steer your marketing decisions in the direction they need. So something like a list of these that you would make your own, customize it to you, would possibly go right underneath a matrix like we just saw for a one-pager type of marketing plan. Some example parameters: a 10% a maximum amount you would sell in a day, or a 20% maximum contingent sale potential, some double up or accumulator type of elevator program. The minimum amount that you would put in various elevator programs to diversify. 10%, a minimum amount of open offers that I want working in the market at any given time, or a minimum sold before planting, or a minimum sold before harvest starts. A minimum that you'll diversify and allocate to a managed pricing pool. A maximum unsold that you might want an on-farm storage on January 1, or a maximum unsold at a different point in time, let's say on May 1. If you have tendencies that you've identified that you have a hard time pushing sales forward, you find yourself perpetually undersold in the late spring, early summer, you set some minimums or maximums on where you want your sales to be by certain points in time. And the matrix that you would create would kind of play along and correspond to what some of these parameters are. On my own farm, I have a lot of on-farm storage, and I put a minimum amount that I, year in, year out, would target to try and deliver in the April to June time frame. Might not end up that way, but the parameters like these you create to kind of steer your marketing decisions. I know I've said that a few times, toward what will keep you away from some of your biggest mistakes and downfalls in marketing. Assessing your marketing plan is where the rubber meets the road. It's the most important part in marketing. It's where you're looking back at your results and what happened, and being honest with yourself about what happened, so that you can move forward and improve. And this is so important, the most important. A lot of people wouldn't think so, but the reason is how you think about what you've done makes all the difference in whether you can improve in your marketing. Say that again. How you think about what you've done makes all the difference in whether you stand a chance to be able to improve your marketing. You know, very common. A couple weeks ago, the price of soybeans rallied, and the week after that, a common conversation I might have had with a farmer that I work with is he says, "Well, I was gonna sell some Thursday afternoon, then I just got tied up and got busy." When I say be honest with yourself and why this is so important, when he says, "Well, I was gonna sell it at around noon or before the market closed," no, you weren't. If you were, you would have. And in fact, telling yourself that you were going to is the same thing as telling your subconscious after enough time that the same thing as that you did do it then. So you got to really judge the decisions that you made against what those goals and objectives were that you had to come up with at the beginning. And if you didn't meet a goal, you got to come up with why that didn't occur. Did you not meet a goal because it was an unrealistic one and you got a flexibility issue? Did you not meet a marketing goal because you didn't meet the objectives that it would take to meet that goal, and you got a discipline issue? Did you not meet the goal because you didn't set the right objectives and need to rethink the strategy overall? Did you not meet the goal because you redefined it in the middle of the game? And we've got some evaluation issue. An evaluation issue would be, you can't compare the results that you had against what price you could have had. Hindsight's your enemy in marketing. And the truth is, what we want to do and what we're capable of doing really experience a divergence when emotions are inserted. As I wrap up this lesson on the marketing plan, I want to leave you with some self-reflection questions that you should ask yourself about your own marketing, and to kind of set a priority list and look at what you might take a look at improving on. So regarding your marketing plan, do you think to improve your decisions, what's the simplest change you could make immediately? What's the most important change you think that you need to make overall? And what status quo, the way you're doing things, for whatever reason, just because you always have, or that's what you did last year, what status quo way of doing things needs reconsidered or challenged right up front? And are you mostly satisfied with your marketing results? If so, is it because of the results, the actual prices you've received, or some aspect of the decision-making process, like you feel confident about the decisions that you are making, about the input you're putting into them, that you made the best decision with the information you had at the time, and you can walk away from it? Why are you mostly satisfied with your marketing results if you are? If you're not, what area of marketing is your number one weakness that you can identify? And lastly, what marketing tool, and there's a lot of them out there, which one do you need to understand more? Is it futures and options? Is it how an elevator program works? Is it different cash contracts offered by your local elevator? What tool do you need to understand more? Well, no marketing presentation would be complete without its most popular disclaimer, which is to remind you there's a risk of loss, and as well as profits, in trading futures and options. And what I said was not intended to be a solicitation or recommendation to buy or sell futures or any other security of any kind. Thank you for joining me today in this market education lesson about marketing plans. My contact information is listed here. Feel free to get in touch with me with any questions or comments at any time. Thanks, and have a great day.